Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, mountain, together with the great gathering of the Sangha of monks and the great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One enters the Samadhi and expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way. Seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times, by means of Prajnaparamita, fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Te yata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhi soha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Thus it is, O son of noble family. Thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. The Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Ala jube ne cho thamba ne ngushe duchu ngayi tu do jen ruba bola ma yi bu jen zi ne song han ro so la sha zi lo. I got some other things. Teatra om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhi soha papa gonchis hikai de doji shir doji meba doji shewa doji dragi bachi metum peshutanchi shirding goyi soha ta jeju shewa dan nube jendan rewa dan Vamba Rujim Bonzom Zodyoji Raji De Jon Denda De Lejo. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient living beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Yedam Guru Radna Mandala Gam Yeratayami.
Namo Layeke Namloda Nejinke Rubandana Meyeke Nadana Wakunji Dana Jadam Tajeke Do Daki Chudun Dos. Oh, yeah.
Jantro, don't do
What is Jandu? Sanji
Judan Zoji Junam Na Yanju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Chinye Jipe Sunam Jin Rolam Benji Sanji Juvaru Judan Zoji Junam Na Yanju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Jipe Sunam Jin Rolam Benji Sanji Juvaru Jadan Zoji Chonam La Janju Badu Dani Jazuchi Dagi Chinye Jipe Sonam Jin Rolam Benji Sanye Jubaru.
What that Daringato Sagandawa, what the Tusu Zambores, Tushent Kidiors, Marbe?
Today is the month of Sakadawa, and it is a very auspicious day and a great festival of great importance.
And
this is an important holiday or important festival for all Buddhist traditions. So today is the celebration of Buddha's birth, Buddha's passing, and Buddha's enlightenment and Buddha's passing into nirvana. So today we celebrate those three activities.
사지 동바이나 안에 모든 편요와르스 샹주 생 사지 공바이나 샹주 생 모지 공야 그와 가르제바이나 그와 나지 제바이나 아니 그와 몬조는 것을 사가 몬조도스.
So today is especially important or powerful as a holiday because it is called the day or the time of virtuous expansion or beneficial expansion. And the meaning of this is that any virtue that one engages in is multiplied by more than 100,000 times, or rather multiplied by 100,000 times. So if whatever virtuous activity one engages in, whether it be meditation on bodhicitta or the name mantra of Buddha Shakyamuni, if one just does one of those mantras of Buddha Shakyamuni, the name mantra, it's equal to doing 100,000.
다소속이 그와데 조중질 매바 이내 곧 뒤기 따지 않는 집을 차는 거서스. 그와 조중질 매나요. 곧 뒤에 아버 인상 네 신기 톨라데네 그와 쳐버리는 거.
신기 톨라데네.
신기 톨라데 봤으네. 다른 사관도 뒤신으로 신 쳐버지레스. 뒤쳐야 아버레스. 뒤 따지 들라데네. 근데 그와 조중질 맞아봐 이내 그와도 몸보다 집을 차는 거서.
So in dependence upon the expansive nature of this important holiday or this important time, even if we have the smallest levels of virtue, these small virtues become expanded, become very great and large.
어제 근데 다 가서 그래. 왔던데 뒤신 쳐봐지 어두서 레디오스 다 해만 가서 친다 베징기 로준도 왔어. 안에 자갈 매 가서 개부지기는 로지아주 제바지게 아니 샤리볼 잡아지로지스 아니 샤리볼 응원식 따네 콜 그자문도스 아니 상지 응원식 지네 다고 쳇남질 제발렌 뒤좀 하마하마도 바실레 최대질 거라지 대인 버라고 최대도 자와지고 인류 그 상로들 거와 가요 말도 그 책이 대운 최대를 거라지 대송으로 어디 거와 차는 어디는 이서스.
We can see the importance of just creating a small amount of virtue in the story of the old man who was 80 years old, who wished to be ordained as a monk in the Buddhist tradition. And he went to Shariputra to ask for ordination, and Shariputra exclaimed that he did not have the amount of virtue within his continuum necessary to be ordained. But the Buddha, through his all-knowing mind, was able to see that he did and ordained him. And the virtue that was created, that the Buddha could see, was actually a time when he was the ki, paba korajak. So where he was actual kon papa kon chien. Kon papa yen. Kien.
쳇나 봐봐 책 대원듯이 봐봐 저거로다 최대는 꼬라지 대고
하고서 얘네 the megengo papa chien kagi
megen고도 제일라고 말이다 megen고들 거와죠 알았어 대뒤 봐봐 최대는 꼬라지 봐도 거와레스 대뒤서 리모르문레스 샤리비 동거 말이야.
So what virtue had been created was that in the past he was a pig that had been bit by a dog, and because he was bit by a dog, happened to be near a stupa, a chorten, and began to run away from the dog and actually circumambulated the stupa. And this virtuous activity was the virtue that allowed this occurrence to take place. So because this time is so important, this expansive time, any virtue that we create, however small it is, through our body, speech, and mind, will expand or will become greater. So in Buddhism, when we speak of the vehicles in which we can engage in activity, there is no other vehicle outside the body, speech, and the mind. There is no other source of action than the body, speech, and mind. Whether we look at the Mahayana teachings or the Hinayana teachings, or any of the other teachings within the Buddha Dharma, I'm not sure, Rinpoche said Sutra and Tantra, that might be a translator's note, but all of the teachings included, you will see that the activities are engaged in through the body, speech, and mind. And there is nothing outside of the body, speech, and mind which can engage.
당가서 고음바다 시대 주던 어디서 즈바드 거와레스 즈바드 거와레마도 시대 주고는 최대고 말이지 말베 세상도 두는 걸로 최대고 말이지 세상 진바다 고음바사바 진바도 거와레스 르지고 나기고 어떤데 돈이 거와레스
the Sulakang Dang Go, the Jimba Yin,
추인서 말와
Chu Mayan.
추 령아 이송려고
That's so.
What the 즈바드 거와레스
So when we look at, for instance, the activities of constructing temples or building statues and so forth, or constructing tankas, these are very good activities, but they don't fall into, I'm trying to get clear on how to do this. They don't fall, these activities are generous activities. But these creations are not the actual actions. The body, speech, and the mind is the vehicle of action. Was that?
What doesn't the do? That's the logic go, nagi go, yeji go, yeji dibasuma. Lunga is only dibasum de, and then also Dunga Lunga is on the deba de Dunga juris, Marba. Lunga is on the Gawade, the jure the waters, and then also the one dogere, Dunga dogo maris. The one dogo yota, and then also the jo. Lunga is Gawad Druad Kishavures. Dunga Mendova Inza, and then also Dunga jo. Lunga is on the deba puate, Negashavures. What does one was, Marba?
So when we look at misdeeds through the body, speech, and mind, these misdeeds are causal factors which produce negativities and suffering. So if one does not wish to have suffering, then it's necessary to abandon the misdeeds of the body, speech, and mind, which creates the suffering. If one wishes to have happiness, it's necessary to abandon the misdeeds that create suffering. And also, to create happiness, it is necessary to engage in virtuous activities, because virtue is the causal factor for happiness. So in dependence upon virtue created through the body, speech, and mind, one can achieve the result of happiness. And in dependence upon misdeeds of the body, speech, and mind, one can achieve the result of suffering.
다 령아이 송 당아서 디바 먹어 주드루지 라샤는 말은 뢰질린 나바소 나게 나바제 안에 이지 나바 송스르와 뢰주고는 소지바 마제발레 마자바쇼바 나고는 주인 타마 제조가지 이지고 나세는선 로다 어때 쥐데 안에 디바레스 말베 되게 안에 동에 제고 와르스 말베.
So when we speak of misdeeds, misdeeds can be categorized into the 10 non-virtuous activities. So these 10 non-virtuous activities are as follows. There are 3 non-virtuous activities of the body, which are killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. There are 4 non-virtuous activities of the speech, which are lying, divisive speech, harsh words, and gossip. And there are 3 non-virtuous activities of the mind, covetousness, harmful intent, and wrong view. So these 10 non-virtuous activities are the causal factors for suffering. These produce sufferings.
어제 다드네 어디서게 다드네 거와주용 거로 봐. 디바 먹어줘 보면 거와주데 거와레스 말이야.
So the abandonment of these 10 non-virtuous activities is the opposite of it, and it becomes the 10 virtuous activities. So the abandonment of these 10, or any one of these 10, becomes the opposite of it, which is the virtue of abandoning any of or all of the 10 non-virtues.
다드네 가서 그래. 다바나 가서 하쇼어서 말이야. 치둘 찾아봐이나 치도 담보 안에 롱라는 되샤도 콘도들 꾸네라 안에 콜 칭에 맞지 라고군도서 칭에 맞지 라바이나 될 하쇼어서 말이야. What the diba is there?
So when we speak of harsh words, for instance, first there is some sort of anger and attachment that takes place, and then some kind of bad language comes out. And this is what is meant by the misdeed of harsh words.
What did the child on Honda the good London,
So if one has this afflicted mind, which is contaminated with or imbued with attachment and hatred, and then lashes out and says these terrible things, and feels that it is beneficial to have said this because of the afflictions, and then actually rejoices in having committed this activity, at that point, this becomes the greatest level of non-virtue, because all components are present. So what will be the defect of this? The effect will be a hell rebirth, rebirth in hell. So if one of the components is missing, if one engages in this activity but does not rejoice and says, oh, I wish I had not done so, then two components are present, and this produces rebirth into the hungry ghost realm. If there is only one present, this produces rebirth into the animal realm. So if the opposite happens and one says, oh, I mustn't use this harmful language, abusive language, because if I do, it will be harmful. If then one has this thought, abandons it, and is rejoicing in having the abandoned, then this becomes the greatest level of virtue, of abandoning its opposite.
So if
one has all of these three components present and engaging in a virtuous activity, then the result of that is a rebirth into the God's realm. If one has two present, this becomes a rebirth into the demigod's realm. And if one is present, this becomes a causal factor, the causal factor for rebirth into the human's realm. So it's very easy for us to achieve rebirth into the gods, the humans, and demigods realms, as well as the lower realms. So all of the 10 misdeeds or 10 non-virtuous activities and all of the 10 virtuous activities that can be thought of in the same way, the same formula can be applied. Gewa Demba. So it was stated in the Bechagare, the Chunibitsu. Okay. I have seen in a text by Basu Bandhu where it states that if there is virtue and non-virtue present, the virtue is actual truth. So the virtue actually has greater ability that's present, the greater potential or greater ability. So the tumble, So whether one engages in virtuous activities or non-virtuous activities, he or she leaves imprints, predispositions, or seeds within the continuum. So if one becomes angry and has some sort of anger or aversion, this leaves a negative imprint, non-virtuous imprint within the mental continuum and plants a seed. So if
생각을 내봐 모여 와서
Sai pombo.
뒤나지 살 뒤문에 생각 모여 와 생각을 안 거하고 내봐 모여 와서 디바 내봐 모여 와서 제가 도마매 본 사람이 디비 사변당 기 사변가 생각
Shemandang drapo.
샤마근 라부 대금 대비요
So if we look at the beginningless nature of our mind, our mind that has been present since beginningless time, and we see all of the seeds that have been planted, all of the predispositions that we have in our continuums from actions, be they virtuous or non-virtuous, we can compare them to the grains of sand. They are so immense. So we can compare these seeds we've planted beginninglessly to sand.
어때는 다디비 사면당기 사면 뭐 생각을 해도 안에 수수 동에 먼저 봐 이나야 상상을 가지고 동에 용도 왔어. 어떻게 네바디 외상 코진에 당 태운도 동에 용 거스. 안에 더와 더봐 이나 더와 용바도 속간로 게이 사면한테 진에 당 태운도 가지고 집에 용 거스 말이야.
So even though we do not wish to have suffering, there is no independence, it seems, because of the fact that when the causes and conditions are present for a predisposition, a negative predisposition to ripen, we will suffer. Likewise, when the causes and conditions are present for the ripening of a positive, virtuous predisposition, then we will experience happiness.
데 살다와 있는데 데 아니고 지금도 그런서 그래 봐.
Sprout.
요거 다가지 지용들 사면 데 되면도 매 요모도 와. 아니 요거들 데그 녀바도 요거들 요도 와서 요거들. 진 콜레 데제하고 녀바도 요자 골데 토용도 와서. 야잔데 용도 와서 어떤 답이 있어.
Then drin nupa
데 살다나 요거 지금.
요거 지금 right.
네, 호버 지금도. 호버 지든데 요 말어. The
So when we look at the example of a rice seed has the ability to produce a sprout, but the sprout that rice seed produces alone does not produce the actual rice. It's the potential within the rice seed that produces the rice from the sprout. The potential in the rice seed to produce rice that produces the rice from the sprout.
어제 다 디바데 네부 도지 상고네 샤당 제바이나 디바 단데요 와르스 네부 도지 상고네 샤당 마제바이나 안 디비 뉴바데 깨바 로바이나 코 메바 차고마르 로야요 마르 라야요 마르스 코 생각 데데 그레스 라라 랭가 요네 런레 장 데베 양다 종 리바제스 레든가네 뉴바데 자네 디바드 마샤바이네 깨바 롱바이나 되네 뒤스ken다 태운도 동에 오르스
The long the bejiga.
오만주고 라라 랭가 요네 런레장 데베 양다 종 리바제스 라라데 랭가네 레가와 먹어 준가네 깨바 뭐시바 이나야 안에 레버 추스고 말레스 ken다 태운도 도와다 동에 오르스
So no matter if one engages in purification, it's possible to purify, engages in purification practice, it's possible to purify misdeeds that one has created. But if a purification does not take place, no matter how many kalpas, no matter how many eons pass, these predispositions, potential will not lessen, will not weaken, their ability will be there. The four opponent powers, though, do have the ability to purify them. So it states, rough translation, in the Umajupa, which is the Sublime Continuum by Lord Maitreya. It states, Umajupa?
Umajupa, Chandakite, Madhava, Chandakite.
What am I thinking? Oh, Umajupa, Madhyamika Avatara.
Madhyamika Avatara.
So in Chandrakirti's entrance to the middle way, I'm sorry, the Sublime Continuum is different. In Chandrakirti's entrance to the middle way, it states that about the infallibility of action. And the action is infallible, and if there has not been an opponent to the fruition of the action, then the fruition will take place and based on whether it was virtuous or non-virtuous. So its infallibility of action means that it will definitely, action will definitely produce consequence. And if the action is a misdeed, and that misdeed has not been purified in some way, then that action will produce suffering.
Oji dagi le saba ina, dibi le saba ina, le dele songre nigris, tonchu nyonjoro, jene nyonjoro, lendan yenla nyonjogi, le song du nigris.
So there are three types of karma.
tonchu nyonjoji le, jene nyonjoji le, lendan yenla nyonjogi le sabuche pama seba la soba, ne le kashi ane tsendel sabin debo de tsendel yongo yoris dewata dunge tsendel yonge de tonchu nyonjogi le res.
So there are three types of karma. There is the karma that will ripen in this life, the karma that will ripen in the immediately preceding life, preceding the following life, and the karma that will ripen in many lifetimes later. So these are the three types of karma, or actions that one can engage in and their potentials. Say did.
What that diba dang go sasha wa de to chibe den ina an tsendel sabin de tsendel nyong ya ji useres de wat dunge.
So when we look at action and we look at virtue and non-virtue, if we have the greatest amount of either one, then this actually produces an effect in this lifetime. So whether it be the effect of happiness or be the effect of suffering, if the virtue or non-virtue is of the great nature, then one will experience it in this life.
Ta le ji de jiwa shemal mi ngores, jiwa shemal de wat dunge ngores. De jine nyonjog le segres.
So if it is just a little less of potential or potency, the virtue or the non-virtuous action, then this will ripen into the following life, the immediately following life.
So then there
is the kind of action that one engages in, virtuous or non-virtuous, that will produce an actual effect in many lifetimes later, many eons possibly, or kalpas later, lifetimes later.
Oje ta diba magawa to sol karsho gore diba dele nyebu toji gno go nyebu toji thang go sha na jebe ina dibi gno ba dele no go marbe nyebu toji thang go nyebu toji de manda mores dibi ne ba de ane shin da mores nyebu toji thama ina ane dibi ne ba de dibi ne ba kale chung ro ja go marbe.
So when we look at virtue and non-virtue, misdeeds and virtuous deeds, non-virtuous deeds can be purified through the use of the four opponent powers. The four opponent powers have the ability to lessen the non-virtuous activities and make them smaller and smaller and smaller. In the same way that fire, we can compare the four opponent powers to fire, and we can compare misdeeds to wood or a tree, sheen wood or tree. And we can imagine that the fire has the ability to burn away the wood in the same way that the four opponent powers has the ability to slowly burn away the potential of a non-virtuous action. Less so. So if one places a seed in fire, then that seed no longer has the ability to ripen. If one places a seed in the ground, then it has the ability to ripen.
Ko member zoya tashi kariyo arsana nyebu toji sangoni shadang che wores shadang che ina deba kande che ina ta thugori sanji ko sungores.
So when we look at the purification of non-virtuous actions, or a way to make the non-virtuous, the predisposition of our misdeed non-existent, the way in which we can do this is through the utilization of the practice of the four opponent powers and acknowledgement of our activities. And this has been stated by the Buddha, and also stated that these four opponent powers have the ability to purify any negativity.
어 사제가 어디바 간데 치부지네 디바다 요아레스 디바다 요아레스 아네 디바다 로주네 ngoboluru shibiti gozo angule malasu bomo sonwares.
The boom Angumala.
Example.
So when we look at the an example in time of one who has had the ability to purify misdeeds, because Buddha has stated that all misdeeds have the ability to be purified, however great they are, we can see in the example in the great master Arya Nagarjuna's book, Letter to a Friend, where he states that there was a being named Angumala who met with the wrong teacher and killed 999 people, and was able to purify that misdeed through utilization of these four opponent powers.
And the
Buddha was able to teach Angumala, and in dependence upon that teaching, he did not have to experience the suffering of his actions. He achieved the state of foe destroyer in that lifetime.
니바 송바 요아르스 차담은 냥랑 다 요마르스 니미고다 생하미 레게 왕게 냥랑 땡데야 요사르스 delta 요마르스 차바바들 아네 동르다 하두도 와르스 코주 녀바제는 아술레 냥랑지 땡도 delta 요마르스 차 송바들 아네 조부 더부제 조부 더 나사메바 조부 더부 요바이나 냥랑 나로레지 돌로사바고야 Kalaya Busaya, Zakalanzaya, Trujaya, Lamadan Jayala Suba, Mambawala Suba, what the so Nyalatonsuna, and then Nyalaya near Seundu, Saint Jibunduna, Debatabtaris.
So, what is the sign that a purification has taken place? How will we know? We can tell by looking at our dreams if we are in a healthy state, but we need to be careful not to engage in analysis of certain parts of our dream state. There are three. The first part of our dream state after falling asleep is said to be influenced by our past actions, previous lives, our karma, and actions engaged in the day, work, etc. So these things are said to influence the dream state at the first stage. The second stage, we're told not to analyze because this is influenced by spirits and gods and so forth who are present. So the actual dream state is manipulated by these beings. So this is not an appropriate time for analysis. It's that last dream state, right before one awakes, that third level that one can engage in analysis of if one is in good health. And some of the signs that one can see is being surrounded by monks and nuns and lamas, mounting a horse, eating good food, drinking good drinks, being in a temple. Rinpoche possibly gave some other examples. Having new clothes, and etc. So these are signs that a purification has taken place. The Drapada, Sulakanda. And also, if one arises from the dream state and seems to have a really good state of mind, a happy state of mind, then this also is a sign that a purification has taken place.
What the name is that? Gawale Karino was contra no luta ni the Gawal contra no luta jebaina and Gawagi knew about Chuntan is Marbe.
Control dang luta. Okay.
Or luta ni the Gawagi knew about Nugaris.
So
we have a doji song on Shana Jina, David never knew. Couldn't cut it.
So we can see that there are kind of opponents when we look at virtue and non-virtuous activities. The four opponent powers have the ability to purify, but in the same way, anger and wrong views have the ability to lessen our virtues. So we can see that these two are opponents to each other.
What the name is that? Then
what?
or that the Karshugore, that teaching the Time, do the Ha, what to Tanji, Lunga is deeper members, and then Lunga is Gawadia, Shechatnaya, what
So whether it's the teachings of the Mahayana or the Hinayana, the Sutrayana or the Tantrayana, the Buddha has stated that the most important thing was the engaging in virtuous activities through the body, speech, and mind. So in the Hinayana view, or the lesser vehicle view, or Theravadan tradition, the thought is to be free from one's own suffering, to achieve a pleasant state for one's individual self alone. So one achieves the realization of renunciation, or the desire to definitely get out, because one wishes to be free from suffering and to have happiness. So in the lesser vehicle, one wishes to definitely get out for him or herself alone, to achieve a pleasant state.
다 테메 봐서 나로 지부 타바토 나냐베 상로 지부 상로 마도 매자 상로 매바레스 티바 매바 상로 추종레스 티바 매바레스 다 티바 전부 되게 안에 나로 동에 먼저 봐 나지 세전 타지게 동에 되고 말에 세전 타지를 동에 매바 쇼나냐베 상로 데이토네 안에 샤주고 생공 어떤 지용도 티바 전부 상로 자치거리는 것을.
So when we look at the lesser vehicle, the reason it is called lesser is because of the scope of the motivation. It is for only oneself alone. So because of the scope is much less, it is called the lesser vehicle, whereas the great vehicle, the recognition is that, like myself, all other sentient beings wish to be free from suffering, and may I in some way eradicate that suffering. And then one meditates or familiarizes him or herself with the mind that aspires to enlightenment in order to achieve that goal.
어제 다드는 하게 냐래 어떤 샤주가 생다 하단 되는 냐래 제바이나 코 네바첸로샤고 디바달레 뇨부차누 선지고 못도발 뇨부차는 거라서 말베.
If one the nga nyamlan chena the nupa
nupa 가서 그래 파신 디발레 뇨바체요스.
So when we look at the tantric vehicle, the ability of the tantric vehicle is much greater, much stronger than that of the perfection vehicle.
어제 다드는 가서 돌을 잡아줘야게 이든 네바치는 도와스. 네바 가시기 잡아지다 다 도움도와. 가시기 ndinzi 다도와. 가시기 때는 잡아 치쳐부 다는데도 소도 말어 소 돌로 가시. 어제 팀에 되게 안에 잡아가 되다고 그랬어. 티바 전부 되게 들 모아다도 그랬어. 탕자 되게 들린 주부다는 그랬어 말어.
So when we look at a cloth, for instance, that's stained, the rapidity of cleaning the stain out can be compared to the soap that one uses. There's one soap that can clean the stain out. It takes a little bit slower, and it can clean this stain out at the smallest level, and this can be compared to the lesser vehicle teachings. Then there's one that can be cleaned out a little bit greater level. The soap cleans it, and that can be compared to the perfection vehicle. But the quickest way to get the stain out, the soiled, to unsoil the cloth, is to use the soap of Tantra, or soap that can be compared to Tantra, which is the quickest way. So here we see it compared to the potential of cleaning the stain from a cloth and the rapidity of it.
저야든 가서 생주고 생지라지 요새와 저만한 루보스 나주이 생데 이지셰바데 안에 그런 요새와 그런 저말에도 말이스 그런 최단지 시야 네바요 말이스 다른 가서 최단지 시 마도바데 녀모바데 시지바 디데 말이스 말베.
At this mind, that the nature of the mind is clear, but at this point, our mind is not clear because it is imbued with the afflictions and the obstructions to omniscience. But the nature of it is not that. The nature of it is clear.
어제 딱 가서 그래 녀모바다 시지바도 생들 돌루기 잡아라 말이스 dolu the sand amaris dolu tabarjun dolu sama chaning doa and the sange sanji tabasugurata nyumobata shi dibata sona sand sama chane and tabatuya sanjiya ladamal jende odani is marbe.
So the afflictions and the obstructions are very similar to the stain and the cloth. The afflictions and the obstructions in the mind are very similar to the stain and the cloth. And this can be cleaned. And once these are abandoned, these obstructions to our liberation and so forth are abandoned, we can achieve the state of liberation. We can achieve the state of Buddhahood. We can achieve the state of rebirth into the gods and humans realms. So we, in dependence upon purifying this, cleaning this mind in the same way one could clean a cloth, one can achieve various results.
Well, not just send in this Sanjigri is me send on. And then can send the Sanjigri yours, send the Koron, Nebachi yours, Chutaji Sheadan, and Jibatanji Moag, Nebat Sangal yours.
The mind has the ability to apprehend all phenomena, to have all-knowing ability. The mind has the ability, because it has Buddha potential, the Buddha nature. So the mind can achieve these higher levels of all-knowing because of this potential that is present. I forgot one thing. When one goes to school initially, there is a large amount of misknowing or ignorance. And as one proceeds to go through school, the misknowing or ignorance relative to various topics is eradicated or abandoned.
But then I just said, you do, and then cut sage lune, Demba Nidan, Demba Jedan, and the Gunju Sundan, Legendadan, what the Lujon Jebaina, Galega Legatin, Denzindan. So
by looking into such things as the two truths and the Four Noble Truths and the Three Jewels of Refuge and karma and its results or action and its consequences, we will be able to eventually the lei judre, the jepo, Sanjay. And we will be able to slowly understand these things, what the effects are. We will slowly be able to understand what the effects of our non-virtuous activities are and what the effects of our virtuous activities are. So we'll slowly be able to achieve our final aim in dependence upon these areas of understanding. Right, I have it written down right here too. So our afflictions and grasping at true establishment will lessen.
What dang also said Nubachiboris and Naruto sent again and business again and also Sanjia Nuba Yuare, Dajumbo to Nuba Yuare, Hadamal Nubakangolo, Naruto San Yuares. Sinjan Taji sent to Yuares.
Sempre Yanja Suranang, Juput Suranang.
Sen Nubachiboris, Sinjan Taji, Sanji Rigi Chadu, what the Kangalo Sanjia Nuba Yuares.
All sentient beings possess the Buddha potential or Buddha nature. So all sentient beings have the ability to abandon these negativities and achieve the state, the Semchen Tamche, the Sanje Kopantu. All sentient beings have the ability to achieve the state of Buddhahood. So since beginningless time, we have planted many non-virtuous seeds within our continuum.
Oji da deba de sha ge ta de sanji ge nyebu doji chang yu gu ne sha gu re sanji ge song ba re chu je dang den na chang me ba nga ya deba yin sing ma ma go nyebu doji chang yu gu ne sha dang je ba yin na pa ma se ba la su bi chang me ge le deba che bu su ge lo da du re.
So what is the method to abandon these misdeeds? And the four opponent powers is the method in which one can purify these misdeeds. And it has been stated that no matter how great the misdeed, even if it is one of the 5 heinous actions, whether it be killing one's mother, father, arhat, drawing blood from a Buddha, or dividing the Sangha, all of these can be purified by the four opponent powers.
What that does time go then Shadan chicken deba da yu then Danandi Tongshagan deba. Tongshagan deba that then Songhead Pechi Buddha Jana Sija, Buddha Jana Santa Taiki in Jero, Buddha Jana. Buddha Sana, Sanji in Jero, Jana Ishi Marve, Sanji Ishi, Sanji Ishi. Sanji Ishi, the what the Tongshagan deba taking the Chenle, Buddha Jana, Buddha Jana. Buddha Jana. Buddha Sanji Jana Ishi Marve, Sanji Ishi Saji, Kebaji Gite, Tongshagan Deba the Tinsaris.
The Tongshagi Delpa, the Chi Kangim Tsen?
Tsen, Buddha Jana.
Okay.
Buddha Jana, Turkey Tuljuba in a Buddha Sanji Marve, Jana Ishiro, Sanji Ishi.
So in this particular commentary that we're going to be using that will explain the four opponent powers, and this commentary is a commentary to the Tongshag, the Confession of Downfalls. The name of the person who wrote this in Sanskrit is Buddha, I didn't know the...
Buddha Jana.
But this is the Sanskrit, and in Tibetan it would be called Sanje Yeshe, which is Buddha's exalted wisdom, or the exalted wisdom of Buddha. So the name of the particular textbook author of this commentary is the Buddha's exalted wisdom.
Da kono diken de beba yingre de beyi tul lamdu Buddha Jana sonjas. Buddha nazo Buddha sana sanjero Jana ishi sanji ishi kon sen odri jinsaris.
Yene kon pupa.
Beba yingre beyi tul tim dus kono me beyi tul lamdus sand take tul la deris.
He wrote it in Sanskrit.
Tibetan author, but he gave his name in Sanskrit.
Right. Okay. There was a Tibetan author, but at the beginning of the text, he didn't put his name in Tibetan. It was in Sanskrit, as stated before. So the Tibetan would be Sanjay Yeshe, but it wasn't written in Sanskrit.
Buddha Sanjay Namo Buddha. Namo Buddha ya. Buddha Sanjay rowa.
Lesso.
Jana ishi rowa Jana. Benya para kaza Jana ishi Sanjay ishi.
Yeshe gets so
yeah.
Exalted.
Sanjay ishi so kebaji go the tribe insaris.
Kalpa chi chi.
One segala the commentary wrote.
Oh, okay, so this is one commentary by a scholar. So this scholar named the Buddha's exalted wisdom wrote this commentary.
Taku karsa Sanjay sungi gune ditun shabi chus. Ta tati pai Buddha gune ditun shabi chute. Tuanda dama tuansen sung gune sheshas. Tuansen sung. Ane di duanxie bala song je, di dong shabi chu, tangbo je. Diba tang tongwa shabi chu. Diba sana nga su diba magawa chu su diba la warwa. Tongwa sana, tongwa da diba de cheba yu warita. Tongwa sana de segrita, dana, pina nga su genye yoro, genye.
Lessa.
Genye.
The Kali la. Tu chena.
Diba magawa chu del diba la waris. Diba. Te chimbagi jene dibare, rajungi jene dibares, rajinji kana matoa, dibalores. Tuasana, and Tuasana roa, Tuasana, and the JB wongi, Tinzune, Tindang Gesuna, and Tuasamarve, Tuas Ting.
Ting law?
Law. And then Lampasen Loa Nayo Marvana, Genil Ponjangandua, Genil Ting Nayo, Ting.
Lesser.
Or Tatan Gesuna. And the Kunyaba Jungo, the Tuan.
Then it's a tumble.
Marman. Lampas and Genero,
Lesso.
Genel Ponja Gazer, Naro.
Nga.
Genel Loanga, Tinga dos nga.
Lesso.
Tinga yoris, Tinga than Gesuna, Nieba Junguris, Jun Junguris,
Lesso.
Tuan lovers, Tuan. Tuas and a Carazana, Tishonsuna, 안에 샤나 마제는 내손 동그레스 내손 사는 그래스 동와서 어디서 보다
Then a tambo the sum yure, then tambo
동부 디동 샤비츠
they don't agree.
디동 샤비츠 다 디바도 동와서 니시 우도다
Thank you. A little covered here.
다때만 딘들 대전에 하셔서 돼야 더버르데 디동 샤비츠 디바도 동와 샤비츠도
So the misdeeds and the acknowledgement of those misdeeds or confessions of those misdeeds.
다 디바스나 가르 디바 먹어줘 디바라고 그래스
So the 10 non-virtuous actions are what we speak of by saying misdeeds.
동와서나 버나 렘파센을 찾아봐 이나 팅나요 알스 나당 계속은 준용을 들 동안로 그랬어
So the next part, tonwa, refers to, it's similar to laws. So laws here refer to vows. So if one has a lay person's vow, for instance, the lay person's vow carries 5 laws. But the novice and the higher vows also have an abandonment of those 5 laws or 5 vows. So these are, the abandonments are present.
Downfalls?
Huh?
Downfalls, you said earlier? Downfalls?
Downfalls?
Like
Misdeeds, downfalls.
Downfalls with respect to rules. Laws. So if you break a rule, then it's a downfall, like a downfall from a vow.
Correct, right. I just wasn't clear. I'm thinking of the next. So the downfall itself, the downfall itself is the actual. So the law, the vow itself is very similar to a law, and the downfall becomes actually breaking the law. And the law is different depending upon which kind of vows we're talking about, whether they be the layperson vow and so forth. Speaking of the layperson vow, there are 5 of those, but there is an abandonment of those 5 in the higher vows as well. So the novice and so forth, there's an abandonment of those 5.
Okay. 다 그냥 동안 도스 동안 팅가도 나요 알았어. 그놈을 팅이 장가 주사 송요 알았어. 그놈 말 팅송자 나주 가진 지요 알았어. 팅 뭐다 뭐도 샤추 샘발 팅 동안 가서 자동 죄제된 예시로 말해. 되는 할 동안 뭐 보여로. 어떤 순간 동안으로 돼서 동안.
So when we speak of laws, and we speak of them in respect to vows, for instance, if one holds a layperson vow, one holds 5 laws, 5 vows. If one holds the fully ordained monk's vow, one holds 253 vows. If one holds the fully ordained nun's vow, then she holds 352 vows. And if one holds bodhisattva vows, there are 18 root and 46 secondary vows, making a total of 64 bodhisattva vows. So here we can see there are large numbers of laws when one takes these vows.
And
then there are more. Juje. Zai Dongwa Juje J. Nyenla J. The Juje. So in the tantric vows, there are the 14 root and the 8 secondary tantric vows, I believe, in highest yoga tantra. That's what we were just talking about. That's the numbers. So there are many different numbers of vows that one can take.
What is that Tibetan? What is one to so Shayagi, Tashita, the Sanji Sungune, Tibetan Shanachiago, and that what they don't shabby choose Tambutres.
So if one wishes to acknowledge one's downfalls, then the Buddha has stated that this is a method of acknowledgement or confession.
They don't the Shadan Jesa to go out and Hoya dedication.
So the second part is an important dedication of virtue. So the second section is the dedication. So the third section is the actual meaning of the acknowledgement of downfalls or acknowledgement of misdeeds. The delpa. So in this commentary, we can find it broken into these 3 categories. And later, below, we will be able to see more of the meaning later on in the text.
Deba shabi chu, deba shabi chu nes, ta deba donwa nyingi dan deba shabi chu. Deba shabi chu ne jege do. Laba ledi zhongwa nenchi, jundu doji tsangwa tenpa je she zongba dara, laba she zongba dara, nyabu doji tsang yu go ne, dedong sha gobe, ane jirma she langri duden kazo, ane legi deba de zhanga de zhira kechibures, laba ledi zhongwa nenchi yu, legi deba zhunga tau kares na doji, nyabu doji nyanglen che gores, jundu doji tsangwa tenpa je song yu gores. Deba de masha na dungan yung gores, deba de shadang che gores, shadang de kande che gores na jirma che, jundu doji, nyabu doji nyanglen che gores, ode song yu gores, ode song.
So it has been stated, we can find even in the Lamrim Duden, which are the abbreviated stages of the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa, this way of utilizing the four opponent powers as a way to acknowledge one's downfalls and to use it as an opponent to the misdeeds. So Lama Tsongkhapa in this text even states that the four opponent powers need to be applied, and the effects of the actions and so forth need to be understood.
Ta nyebu doji de kares na, ta dene tenji go ne, deba shabi, dedong shabi chuyu sa, tenji go ne, tenji do. Nyebu doji sang go ne, tenji do marwe.
Tambo.
Tenji do de, shangchu sen de jalu gongpa de marwe. Tenji doji go ne, dedong shabi chuyu, tambo chi.
Less so.
Tene nyebu gundu shabi doji go ne, dedong shabi chuyu. Nyeba chi. Naba sunji bi doji go ne, dedong shabi chuyu. Nyeba la dubi, doji go ne, dedong shabi chuyu. Wada nga su jundu momo she sa waris de. Chochu kodo waris. Tambo tenji do de, shangchu sen, Jiangzhou dan shangchu sen gongpa de res marwe. Jiangzhou dan shangchu sen gongpa go ne, an dedong shabi chuyu. Deba dan tongwa sha go waris. Shabi chuyu do se res, uluma she ge yins marwe.
Less so. So when we apply the four opponent powers, there are four different sections of the four opponent powers. The first is called the power of the base, and the power of the base, or power of basis, refers to bodhicitta and refuge. So the mind that aspires to enlightenment coupled with refuge. The second is the power of regret. The third is the power of commitment, and the fourth is the power of an antidote. They've listed in various different orders, but those are all four. And the first one being the power of basis, which is bodhicitta and refuge. And we've gone over this many times before.
Oje, tatene tambo rawa, ta tambo tenji go ne dedong shabi chu, tenji go ne dedong shabi chu tambo nese. Tui tata lama la chosu chu, sanje la chosu, chu la chosu, gendyo la chosu, tongshan go le yo marbe, o teres de.
Lessa.
Tui tata lama la chosu chu, sanje la chosu, chu la chosu, gendyo la chosu chus, marbe.
Lessa.
Nga su ayi teka ribu inda bodhi dhamma sanga sayad marbe. Tungul ta beba ge, ngang ge lama zawa chebe indu, tui tata lama la chosu chu, sanje la chosu, chu la chosu, gendyo la chosu chus, chawndo je she gandu was. Tongshan go teres, marbe.
So at the beginning of the Confession of Downfalls to the 35 Buddhists, we can see it begins with the actual refuge. And it says, to the founder, Bhagavan, Tathagata Arhat, I take refuge in the Buddha, Sanje la Jasuchiyo, Chula Jasuchiyo, Genula Chitsuchiyo.
Ngazu beba bachan de namu shangchu sembi tongwa shabas, tongshal de yoro, namu si sha tsewa marbe. Shangchu sembi tongwa shabas, buddha saba, tongwa shaba. Shangchu sembi tongwa shaba.
Prostrate to the confession of Buddhism.
Da mindi shi tui da lama la josu shu, sanje la josu, chu la josu, gendun la josu, tongsha ngogo de marbe.
Okay, so in this, here there is initially a homage or prostration to the confession of downfalls. And then it says, I, and you insert your name throughout all times, take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, and I take refuge in the Sangha. So here we see, if we were looking at the first category, power of basis, we see refuge taken. And if one, the reason that in the Tibetan tradition we see the guru mentioned, the lama mentioned, is because one also, if one has a root teacher, a root lama, goes for refuge to him or her.
Da min de sheje was da min de sheje was da kan de shang chu sen ba zu ge dong de shuang ji song le den dong sha go ye ro da na mo shang chu sen be dong sha ba na mo sha ce wa shang chu sen ba bu de sa ba ma ba bu de sa ba zu ge dong shong shong na an dong sha le den sha na ji go ye ro an den na jing a chu sha na jin de ba ta wo ro na mo shang chu sen be dong sha ba da min de sheje wa da min de sheje wa zong de an ne de ba sha de ba yu an ne de ba ma sha ba yin na 지원처럼 먹을 날 동에 용거래 아니 저 내가 동에는 안 되고 뭐도 안 동에도 봐 맨날 동에 그 디바래 안 디바도 자동지 안 되고도 나무 상주에서 동화샤 다 메디 세제와 뒤다도 안에 간대샤기에서나 아니 건축성을 쪄서 누이고 디바샤 그래서 말해 다음에 세제와 뒤다도 라마를 쪄서 줘서 라마를 쪄서 누기 상제를 쪄서 누기 출을 쪄서 누기 그네를 쪄서 누기 말해 all things that.
So after the immediate, the beginning homage, we see that there is a statement that I blank throughout all time. So here we make an insertion of our name. And the reason for this is we're saying that I, by the name of so-and-so, have a wish to acknowledge my downfalls or have an acknowledgement of my actions. And I know that I do not wish to suffer, and that misdeeds will be the producer or the causal factor for my suffering. So I wish to acknowledge these downfalls in order to not experience these effects. So here, the reason for saying the name is acknowledging or making acknowledging the fact that one has a wish to acknowledge one's downfalls or confess one's downfalls.
Lama da sanje pechi sotu yo maris rowa sanje de mema da boris sanje de jun kunse yenden kuden res shajaman boda tabu tamu nga chotun da boris kon nyomo yo ar donge yo are an ko anebe toni du bi shara da janju ke sen gombala dene an ko nyomo ba de shi je ba nga ta sanje so res sanson sonju zani da peje zon bi jeju ane kasure
Sumje suni tigare then the changare.
The logo is mar that the sanje was the lojan mar.
The sepa. So when we speak of refuge in the Guru and refuge in the Buddha and so forth, we'll move to the explanation of going for refuge to the Buddha. And we should look at the Buddha as a doctor and see him or her as an actual doctor. And the ability to get rid of the afflictions and the suffering that they produce. So by Buddha Shakyamuni was previously exactly like ourselves, had sufferings, had afflictions, but in dependence upon the wisdom realizing emptiness coupled with the mind that aspires to enlightenment, he was able to achieve the state of Buddhahood in the same way that we can. So we should look at the Buddha as a doctor so that we can get rid of our afflictions, so that we can abandon our sufferings. So if someone is ill and goes to the doctor, goes to a doctor for instance, the doctor can make a diagnosis and then prescribe some sort of medication. If though the patient just goes to the doctor and then is prescribed medication but does not take the medication, then there can be of no benefit. There is no opponent because the actual diagnosis has taken place, which requires the medicine that the person did not take.
So
So if one just goes for refuge to the doctor only, this does not have the ability without the medicine to abandon the illness, does it?
But then I just Sanjil Johnson, Sanjig Sonshab, Pendant, Chudin, Jene, and Debatago in Saramadu, Sanjig Sonshab, Chudin, Osman, Debatayo Mothers.
So the Buddha has stated that if one goes for refuge to the Buddha and then practices the Dharma or engages in the Dharmic activities, then this will have the ability to purify. But one must engage in the Dharma in order for this to take place.
Sanjila Joseph, Chula Joseph, Gandunda, Jodu Darun Marbe.
And the Gendun Nurstan Drabadu, then the spiritual community or Sangha can be compared to helpful aides or nurses.
Sangha is that Tolan Tuba Yenshi the Sangha is Marbe, Teme Baba, Shansen Baba, Sanji Baba, Odusu, Sangha said, Odusu Marbe.
So when we look at the spiritual community or the spiritual community jewel, Sangha jewel, the true Sangha jewel are the beings who have reached the path of seeing, the superiors, the Hinayana superiors, the Bodhisattva superiors, and the Buddha superiors. So these are the beings that we're referring to when we say the Sangha. These are the Aryas.
So the
Dharma is compared to medicine in the way that the medicine is compared to the path, truth of path, which will produce the cessation. Not produce, but the truth of path, which will then enable the truth of cessation to be present.
So if
the afflictions are eradicated, afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience are both eradicated, then one becomes a Buddha.
ane jandu junyi thanggu res junyi ma thana jandu ya bu yong ma res jetan de bu gar jena ju thanggu ma du ju ma thana ma du ina je gu was ane ju thangsu na ma du ina je gu was ju ma thana jandu je gu ma res jandu junyi thanggu res.
It's necessary to, if one wishes to produce a refuge in the three jewels, it's necessary to have the two causal factors present in order to produce a refuge. Likewise, it's not possible for a flower, if there is not a cause, then for a flower, then a flower cannot grow. Likewise, if there is not a cause for refuge, refuge cannot be produced.
There
are two causal factors for refuge, fear and faith.
So when
we speak of refuge, these two causal factors of fear and faith that need to be present are as follows. The fear is the fear of recognizing the various sufferings that one will have to endure, the sufferings of the lower realms, etc., and so forth, the suffering of cyclic existence. One recognizes this, and a fear actually comes, and that becomes the first causal factor for refuge. And then if one has faith in the three jewels as a basis, then the second as a basis for eradication of that fear, then at that point the second causal factor for refuge is produced. So these are the two causal factors for refuge that are necessary to be present to produce refuge. So it's this, an example that we can give that is similar is if a small child for instance, encountered a dog, and the small child encounters a dog and becomes very fearful of this dog, and then he or she runs to his or her parents for refuge, for protection. So this is very similar to the refuge that needs to be produced relative to Buddhism, relative to the three jewels, the refuge of fear and faith. In the same case as the child having fear in the dog and faith in the parents, and faith in his or her parents.
The
parents have love and compassion for the child, as well as the ability to get rid of the dog, so they are an appropriate basis of refuge. Buddha has love and compassion for all sentient beings and also has the ability to free all sentient beings from suffering. So if we are go for refuge to the Buddha, then we will be able to the Dugnyo. Can. The refuge has the ability to the Yanja Suralang, Jupa Suralang.
That's how you tell Sunday, also doing Candace, doing to Candace, and Sanjay, and children as soon as you are Jutter, Deba Mago, shooting as soon as you are Jutter Das, go out to Dundrundagi, Jutter Das, Sanjay Sons habitude, Pandamores, Johnson do you go there, and then later they have Sona, and then as soon Garne, Dundrundria, Tabaldria, Sanjay, what the name is a marvel.
So in dependence upon going for refuge to Buddha, if one abandons the negative actions, 10 negative actions, engages in the 10 virtuous activities, then the ability will be present to abandon the lower realms, suffering of the lower realms, and eventually, based on these actions, one will be able to achieve the state of liberation as well as Buddhahood.
If
we wish to go to New York City, it's necessary to understand the road to go to New York City very well. If we don't understand the road, we'll go on a different one. The Buddha knows the roadway or pathway to get to the higher realms. The Buddha knows the pathway to get to liberation. The Buddha knows the roadway or pathway to get to the all-knowing mind or omniscience. The Buddha states, previously I traversed this road and now you can do the same. So this is why the Buddha has stated that Dharma is similar to medicine. So if we are going for refuge, and some advices that we can hold are as follows. If we take the first part of any of our food or drink and offer it, would be very good. So if we have a house or a car or any jewelry or any items that we possess, basically we can make an offering of those as well. Don't worry, Buddha will not have the ability to take our things, so we're just offering them. He won't take our earrings. Making an offering of them is beneficial. So if we think of this like an offering, then this is virtuous. We think of offering, then this is virtuous.
Sanjil Budu, Sanji ya Toboroa, and Buguya Levo Mara, Buguji Dosi, and Buguji the Kalinza, and the Sanjil Hose knowledge, Mat people, and Sanjik the Jeores. The Jene, and the Sanjik Jamat 춘 팬티 말왜 팬티 존나 샤리볼 제네 졸라콘 팬티 도스지스.
So there is a story of the time of Buddha when there were two children playing around in sand. And when the Buddha arrived, the child became very, had a large amount of faith, or had faith in the Buddha when he arrived, and wanted to make an offering, but the Buddha is very tall, and the children were very short. So what the children did is one climbed on top of the other to become taller, and then made an offering because he or she had nothing else of sand. To the Buddha with proper motivation. And it is stated that then Shariputra was able to use this sand, and it turned into enough paint to paint an entire temple.
What the Debut that's Haji Huadam Malaja uses, the Debut the Bugu Java Ashukal Chismos.
So the effect of Buddha's aspirations and so forth for this being was that he or she was born as King Ashoka. King Ashoka.
Jagagi what the Jabu Jedal Jade Ashoka Marvede. Jagar, India. India Jabik saying Ashoka Jeda to Mara Sangaji.
So in India there's the sign
Sangaji, Poland. This.
Oh, the seal with 4 lions on it. I'm not familiar with this. I'm sorry, but there's some sort of seal in India.
Oh, the Ashoka Jeda.
And it's got a
pedestal that appears on the 100 rupee note. It has on the top of it has 4 lions facing in the 4 directions.
Really?
Yeah.
It was on Chenrezig's passport.
Oh, okay. So that's it. I wasn't aware of that.
What the Bugu Puyasha Shimama do you maris? Shimama then Bugu the King Java Ashoka Chesmaris. Java Ashoka Gitin, Jagalomal, Sanjik, Nation Kaya Jitambaris, or a Nas, Bodaka Kangalo, Ashoka Durinzo yours, Durin, Dole Gitin, the Sanjia yours.
So the effect of this, King Ashoka in India has built so many different temples and stupas, and you can see all of these things today. And this was a result of this small offering because the child had nothing else of sand to the Buddha.
What the Insang also Jisa Tonga to Suknalo, and Conjus Chuba Bugin, the Penchaburis.
So if we can make an offering of anything that we eat or drink, then this will be very beneficial.
And the Sanjay to Suknolo, then you Tosalija, Chubambia, what the name is, doesn't your name make there?
So the way in practicing, we can make offerings to all the Buddhas and so forth, as seen here. And we can put texts on the altar and make offerings to that, to those.
What the Nichigin, not the Joson to Payam yours, Nason Jigamaris.
Tamche lang, Jubuche. Nason Jigamare.
Dendral Jigris. You were the career lotion.
Okay, then.
Joson.
So there are many benefits to going for refuge, and there are many benefits that are stated. The first benefit is that one will not be born into the lower realms, and one will be born into the higher realms. One will be able to achieve liberation. One will be able to achieve omniscience. One will be able to purify misdeeds. All of the protectors will protect us. Dharma protectors will protect us. There are many. So there are within it there are many different benefits listed.
Okay.
Then so that will conclude the actual teaching for today. We'll do the dedications and so forth because we're edging close to noon. As we stated before, we were going to try and end at 11:30 so everyone can have the meal that took the one-day vow. We'll do dedications, and then Rinpoche said questions and answers. That's something we want to do. I don't know as far as the people's needing to go for 12.
Before noon or start at noon?
Start at noon. The Chutsu Juni Gutsogodu. Sorry, Omare. Gutsogodu.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And the she to what the do man.
So yeah, it starts at noon, so it would be fine.
Yeah, everything's done next door, so it's not a problem.
Okay, and here, what kind of time frame you need help to get it going? Everything's set? I just want to make sure you have enough help and everybody's, you know.
Sure, and you still me.
Okay. All right, so the tambo hua, tambo chua dan lenja, gari akshu. Chansan gari be. Okay, so first, why don't we do the dedications, and then we'll see how many questions and answers we can address. Okay? Okay. So the back section is the beginning, and we'll just do the prayers in Tibetan transliteration. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niratayami Nyambe Bhavun Jeta Nyen Padam Gondu Zambo Deyan Dejinte Deda Gunji Jesu Daloche Gewa Da Danche Ratungu Dusum Shebe Gyawa Tamche Gi Ngowa Gala Chotu Ngabade Dajen Gewe Tsawa Di Kunjang Sambo Chuchi Ratu Ngowarji Namri Rawe Ngowe Jinyande Mernande Wamalunyo Chenrezig Today it's very good. Large amounts of virtue have been accumulated. So the Zanima Dan. So today people have a holiday or a day off, and it is very beneficial that you have come today. It's very good.
Yeah.
So does anybody have? Yes.
I was just wondering, when you're going to make an offering of food or anything you own, is there a certain mantra you should say or something in particular?
The kala dan chu chibuguna the garila zonga yorbe garil
Oma ahon bless bless abrin trijo okay then
so it's okay. You can just say Om Ahom 3 times, and that blesses, can bless a conversion blessing of the basis, and then you can say, I offer this to the Buddha Dharma Sangha. And that would be adequate.
Okay,
very easy. So in this way, it's very easy thinking this way. Yes, sir.
This question about Sacredal. I've heard it stated that without renunciation, any virtuous action can only ripen as another continuation or cause for cyclic existence and not direct cause for liberation. However, I thought I remember reading in Abdulajan a commentary that said on Sakradawa and holy days like this, virtuous practices can only ripen as a cause for enlightenment or cessation of suffering. What does Rinpoche say?
Rinpoche ngama the Adrian Becha Mama Loson, then the Becha Nanla, the Sakardawa la, the Neparjon Mena, then the lay Tamche Sana Koa Ju, Neparjon Mena. The data yimba yene the becha the hakomar yene the ngama Adrian Dason the Sakardawa the yomare. The nyanin le depigi Jew.
Then I also go on Goamu Taba to be Jews, Haji to be Jews, the Sheda Congress, Sing to Latam Garamatus. Tuichenam Sagandawanam, the Nilangaso Gawayana, what Vigi, Taba to be Joe, Sanji to be Joe, Dundu to be Jun Waters, Sing Tolatam and Garamatu, Kunjun Koa Kui Juris, Jeremichilan Richmond all with those waters. Sing Tolatam and Garamatu, Azu Goa, Moncha to Koa Kui Juris.
So more of the activities.
Lan Richmond what this more. Sing Tolatam and Garamatu. Kunjun Koa Kui Juris, and Azu Goa Mobayoro. Goa to the Sing Tola Devangaji, Tabijo, Taji Jimbijo, Odin Ruris, the Maima Monjo Koa Kui Juris Goa.
So it's been stated in the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment that more of the virtuous activities will produce cyclical consequences or cyclical rebirth. So more of the activities that we engage in, virtuous, will produce cyclical effects. But on holy days, on special days such as Sakardawa, there's the Buddha's holy days, holidays, and so forth, it is said that the potential, the virtues have the potential to ripen into Buddhahood, into liberation, and into higher realm rebirth. And there's an example of a tree, and I'm not clear on that. Has anyone in here heard an example of a tree in similarity? The Shin, the Netsuga. Shin Yomare.
No, not tree.
Okay, okay, it's not Shin.
Shin tola temba sana sagadawa tuse zawa cheborowa. Shin zawa chebore. Shin to power.
Oh, powerful. Oh, Shinto temple. Okay, Shinto. Like Shin, that Shin. Like power. The Shinto temple. I'm thinking tree. I'm like, what's the tree have to do with? So it's powerful virtue. There's more power in this virtue than there is in the virtue on the other days. And most of the virtue will normally ripen into cyclical consequences, whereas there's more power in the virtue, so it has the ability to produce Buddhahood liberation and the higher realm consequences.
나 가서 샴바 공부 있는 샴바 자와 치부시다레스 곧 상지 공부도 존도 상주그 센터 샴바다 현지다 돈이도 공부 있나 그 답은 다시 좀 존도 그랬어 그런 자와 치부르지
tearing
sakadawa.
So because of the power of love and compassion, the mind that aspires to enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness, because of the power of these objects of analysis, they have the ability to produce the stronger results as well, the Buddhahood liberation in higher realms. So the meditation or familiarization with these, because of their powers, produce stronger types of virtue with stronger potentials.
So
the going for refuge to the three jewels is a powerful basis. So we are able to create a large amount of virtue by going for refuge to the three jewels. So if we think of the two truths, or noble truths, or impermanence, then this is also virtue. This is very good. There is a lot of places this is found as well as in perhaps liberation in the palm of your hand.
Easy understand.
So it would be easy to understand it in this text.
Yes.
Just a clarification. The practices of the 35 Buddhists, does that eradicate the negative consequences in future lives, or does it eradicate negative rebirths, or both?
Okay, so so the question is, does it eradicate negative consequences in future lives, or the birth itself, or both?
Or both.
Okay, so give me the whole question one more time and we'll be done. So
a practice such as the 35 Buddhas,
right.
Does that eradicate?
So this specific practice, okay. The Tongshag, Nyamlan Chena, then the Jewa Shimi, the Dungyao Pangadu, Jewa Shimi, Jewa Pangadu, Dungyao, Jewa Shimi, the Dungyao Jewi Pangadu, got it.
Jewa Shimi, Gansu Dungan to the Mono, Gansu Dungan, Kalekalangano, and the Kalekale Kui Dungan.
So it slowly will allow one to abandon the suffering of the lower realms, the birth into the lower realms, and then one will be able to eradicate the cyclical suffering, and then then one will be able to achieve the state beyond liberation, Buddhahood.
Okay.
And the amount of virtue accumulated in Sakradawa, that continues for another 15 days after today.
The Shapujonga Jema Sakradawa Yirbe.
Sagandawa, that Tibetan Pomon, the Sagandawa Metabaris, Tibet Dawa Jibatle, Sagandawa Lagris, Napa Sagamento, Chuduchi Sagas, Sagandawas, Dawadile. Dawadegi Tebajin, Jungi Bado, Dushin Chot Zagris, Daukuru Chazon Sagandawaris. Tebajin, Jungi Bado, and Taring to Sebadul, Dushin Cheshudris. The carriers are not Taring to Settle, and the Sanji be Dushin down, good down be Dushin down, good young Dushin from Kilguizan, Dushin Chewad, what is the risk?
Yune Junga Jema Yure.
Dawa Chasang Sakadawaris.
So the Dawa Jipa. So
Babi Dawa Jiba Chasang Sakadawaris.
So the fourth month on the Tibetan calendar is what is called Sakadawa on that particular calendar. Today is the most powerful occasion on that particular calendar, and it goes for Sakadawa goes for one entire month. But today, I believe it's is it the 15th or I think he said 12th actually. I don't know the Tibetan calendar at all. Just to be honest with everybody, I don't know anything about it. So on this particular day, it's the 15th. So on this particular day, the 15th, it's stronger because this is the celebration or the holiday, the holy day in which we celebrate Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and passing into nirvana. So this particular day has more potential or more power than the other days, but yes, Sakadawa does go on for the 15 more days because it's the whole month.
So it'd be important to guard against non-virtuous actions because they're potentially much more negative for the next 15 days.
The Chabu Junga Dipasana Jibache She Chewa.
What did it? The Chibu Yinsa Babazuga did in the Shamazaya, Nune Dea, and Kagi, Ruju and Soya, and Chura Toya, what then Goa Ketchuput and Jigris.
Chura Sagadu.
Chura Zoya Marbe,
Zupa Zoya.
Dibet.
Dasi Dangamare.
Tazitan Jigrid.
Dasi Mamodan. So during this particular month, as Tibetans, we try to engage in various actions and refrain from things such as not eating meat, chura. Oh, right, that's it. Okay, and going. That's what the place where we debated was called chura. I forgot. So, and we engage in large amounts of debate and so forth in the debate courtyard. So, engaging in large amounts of virtuous activities during this time. The misdeeds, Deepa Chewa, Sagarbe.
This one I pay Gomba, someone do Shapunga injury. And the PG Ruju.
So in my monastery, we do the Guya Samaja and the Yamantaka practice and do offering ceremonies for both Guya Samaja in Yamantaka. So this pervades all of the monasteries, whether they be nunneries or where monks abide. So a lot of people are making circumambulation and making prostrations and doing prayers and mantras and so forth during this period of time.
That not visit Tunguja, Chazon, and Shila tradition of Marbe. Shila de that and Tallinn to Satu Chejan to the Valancasaris and land to land and there's a Jigons and Chazons and Jenda Dinamadu, Najalan Chumaris.
So for those who are holding the Mahayana one-day vow today, one needs to be aware that when you go to receive your food, take as much as you need to eat for that one sitting. And when you sit down, finish that food, and it's not appropriate to receive food from someone else or eat other food. It should only be the food that one has put into his or her bowl initially.
That's it. Sonima do your mados.
So once one has eaten lunch, that's it. There's no dinner. So make sure you get a big plate. That's the trick. So this is for those who are those who hold the Mahayana one-day vow need to refrain or listen to these. Make strong aspirations for those who are ill and those who are natural disasters and so forth, those who are suffering, basically.